one of the greatest rock bands in music history, which, despite the death of its frontman, remains incredibly popular and continues to deliver spectacular shows around the world for over 50 years. Today, we will talk about Queen, a legendary band of virtuoso musicians and songwriters whose work is known for its diversity of genres and musical innovations, and who cannot be imagined without the incomparable Freddie Mercury. Which of the band's videos influenced the evolution of the music video industry? Who inspired the remaining members to continue working with new vocalists? And why did the bassist not support this initiative? You'll find out about all this and more in our new video. Queen. What happened to the musicians of the Royal Rock Band? The beginning. The story of Queen began in 1964 when guitarist Brian May and vocalist-bassist Tim Staffel decided to form a band called 1984, named after George Orwell's famous novel. At that time, May had just graduated from Hampton School and was studying physics and mathematics at Imperial College London, though he had been drawn to music since childhood. He learned to play the guitar at the age of 7 and always dreamed of owning the famous Fender Stratocaster electric guitar. However, Brian's parents couldn't afford such an expensive instrument, so by 1963, the young guitarist and his father completed work on their own guitar, the Red Special. It was crafted from wooden fragments of an 18th century fireplace, parts of a motorcycle, and buttons. This unique guitar, with its distinctive sound, can be heard in almost all of Queen's hits. Interestingly, since then, instead of a pick, Brian has preferred to use a sixpence coin to play. Meanwhile, Staffel, also a Hampton graduate, enrolled in a graphic design course at Ealing Art College, where he became friends with Farrokh Bulsara. Soon after, other members of the band started getting acquainted with him as well. Smile. In 1968, Brian May and Tim Staffel decided to leave 1984 and formed a new band, Smile. Brian immediately began searching for a drummer and posted an ad at his college. Roger Taylor, a dental student at the medical college who later attended the University of East London, where he earned a bachelor's degree in biology, responded to the ad. When Taylor was 7 years old, he formed his first band with friends, where he played the ukulele. In school bands, he played guitar, but soon realized he had a greater talent for drums. During the audition, he made a strong impression on the other members and became part of the group. In April 1970, Tim Staffel, who had developed an interest in American music, left Smile, leaving the band without a vocalist and bassist. He joined several other groups and later shifted his focus to costume design for films. Interestingly, in 2001, he returned to music and began pursuing a solo career. A new name. The future of Smile seemed uncertain, but Farrokh Bulsara, who frequently attended their rehearsals, convinced May and Taylor not to give up on the band. In conversations with Farrokh, the musicians finally discovered that he had an amazing voice. Moreover, he had a clear vision of how to improve the band's performances and style. Without hesitation, they invited Farrokh to join Smile, and he immediately came up with a new name for the band, Queen. Around the same time, he changed his name to Freddie Mercury and later designed the famous Queen crest, combining the zodiac signs of all the members. By the way, Freddie had started calling himself by that name as a teenager, inspired by rock and roll. When he was 8, his parents sent him from his native Zanzibar to live with relatives in India, where he began attending St. Peter's School in Panchgani. In addition to music, Bulsara excelled in tennis, painting, and theater, and also developed a passion for stamp collecting. His stamp collection was later exhibited at philatelic shows. Meanwhile, music began to take up more and more of his time, and even the school principal recognized his talent, arranging piano lessons for Freddie. At the age of 12, he formed his first rock band with friends, performing at school events. After failing his final exams in 1962, Freddie returned to Zanzibar. However, in early 1964, a revolution erupted in the country, forcing the Bulsara family to flee to the United Kingdom. In 1966, Freddie enrolled at Ealing Art College to study graphic illustration, where he met Tim Staffell and later Roger Taylor. Together, they sold secondhand clothes at Kensington Market. Freddie also worked as a baggage handler at Heathrow Airport and sang in little-known bands. The search for a bassist. With Freddie Mercury as vocalist and keyboardist, Brian May as guitarist, and Roger Taylor on drums, Queen now had a strong core lineup. Interestingly, Taylor even turned down an offer to join Genesis. However, finding a permanent bassist proved difficult. Over the course of a year, 3 different musicians cycled through the band. In February 1971, at a London concert, May and Taylor met 19-year-old bassist John Deacon and invited him for an audition. Deacon received his first guitar as a gift from his parents when he was 7 years old, but his primary passion at the time was radio electronics. Nonetheless, his teenage interest in the Beatles prompted him to return to guitar lessons. In 1965, at age 14, Deacon formed his first band, The Opposition, in his hometown of Oadby. By August 1969, he left the group and moved to London to attend Chelsea College of Science and Technology. Initially, he thought his guitar and amp would no longer be needed, so he left them at home. However, a few months later, he realized he still wanted to play in a band and asked his mother to send him his gear. In late 1970, he formed a new band, but they performed only once. He also attended a Queen concert, though the dimly lit figures on stage failed to impress him at the time. Despite this, he still showed up for the Queen audition. May and Taylor were impressed by Deacon's talent and technical abilities, and in March 1971, he officially joined the band. This solidified the classic Queen lineup, which would last for over 20 years. The first albums. In July 1973, Queen released their debut album, Queen. The first single, Keep Yourself Alive, like the album as a whole, didn't gain much popularity at the time. The recording process took the band 2 years, as the members were balancing their studies with the band, and they could only access the recording studio during rare free slots. In 1974, Queen released 2 albums, Queen 2 and Sheer Heart Attack. The latter included hits like Now I'm Here and Killer Queen, the latter being their first song to have a music video. She's a killer queen. It was their third album that brought Queen widespread fame, critical acclaim, and commercial success. Around the early 1970s, Freddie Mercury began dating Mary Austin, Brian May's former girlfriend, whom he had met through Brian. However, after a few years, Freddie started a relationship with Elektra Records executive David Minns. In 1976, Mercury came out to Mary as bisexual, and they parted ways romantically. Despite this, they remained close friends, with Freddie often referring to Mary as his one true friend. Innovators. International fame came to Queen in late 1975 with the release of A Night at the Opera. The album, named after the Marx Brothers comedy A Night at the Opera, topped numerous charts and became Queen's first platinum release in the US. The album's first single, Bohemian Rhapsody, was nominated for 2 Grammys and became a global hit. Many critics and fans have since hailed it as the pinnacle of the band's work. In 2000, Bohemian Rhapsody was even named the Song of the Millennium in the UK. Initially, EMI executives refused to release the groundbreaking 6-minute song as a single, believing it wouldn't be commercially viable. John Deacon trimmed the track, removing the operatic section, but Freddie Mercury insisted that they release the original version or not release the song at all. The accompanying music video for Bohemian Rhapsody was equally successful and influential, often regarded as one of the greatest music videos of all time. It was the first video in music history to significantly boost a single's sales and help it climb the charts, marking the beginning of the tradition of releasing videos to promote singles. To support A Night at the Opera, Queen embarked on a tour across the US, UK, Canada, and Japan. In 1975, John Deacon married Veronica Tetzlaff, with whom he still lives today, and together they have 6 children. At the end of 1976, Queen released A Day at the Races, named after another Marx Brothers film, which served as a follow-up to the previous album. Stylistically very similar to A Night at the Opera, the new release was immediately criticized for attempting to replicate the success of the previous year. The band didn't deny the resemblance, with Brian May stating that the material for both albums was prepared simultaneously, with one just released later. Nevertheless, the album performed well on the charts and went platinum in the US, with the single Somebody to Love becoming a hit. Incidentally, many modern artists now frequently release multi-part albums, following a similar approach. Queen in their hard rock era. To thank their fans for their success, Queen held a massive free concert in London's Hyde Park, drawing an audience of over 150,000 people. Meanwhile, in 1976, Brian May married Chrissy Mullen, with whom he had 3 children, though the marriage ended in 1988. In the fall of 1977, Queen released the album News of the World, where the band shifted away from their usual symphonic rock sound, focusing more on hard rock. The songs We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions achieved worldwide fame, becoming iconic rock anthems. However, the album as a whole received mixed reviews from critics and did not perform as strongly on the charts as some of their earlier works. Queen in their pop era. After another tour across North America and Europe, Queen released their most controversial album, Jazz, in late 1978. The album featured the hit Don't Stop Me Now. I'm a racing car passing by like Lady Godiva. But what stirred the most buzz was the artwork for the singles Fat Bottomed Girls and Bicycle Race, as well as the music video for the latter, which included nude female cyclists. Critics were even harsher on this album than its predecessor, accusing it of being too pop, but the fans loved it. That same year, Roger Taylor began dating Frenchwoman Dominique Béhrand, with whom he later had 2 children. Change of style. With the arrival of a new decade, a new era in Queen's music began. The band decided to move away from their glam rock style both musically and in their stage personas. For example, Freddie Mercury cut his hair short and grew a mustache. During this time, Freddie also relocated to Munich for a while, where rumors circulated about his relationship with actress Barbara Valentine. However, mutual friends claimed they were just friends, while Mercury was actually involved in a passionate long-term relationship with restaurateur Winnie Kirchberger. In 1980, Queen released The Game. This time, their stylistic experiments were well received, and the album became the only one in the band's history to reach #1 in the US. The most famous song from the album was the disco funk hit, Another One Bites the Dust. Another one bites the dust. It topped several charts, was nominated for a Grammy, and became Queen's best-selling single worldwide. The song was written by John Deacon, who, despite writing fewer songs than the other band members, was responsible for many of Queen's global hits. That same year, Queen worked on the soundtrack for the sci-fi superhero film Flash Gordon. In 1981, they collaborated with David Bowie to record Under Pressure, which topped the UK charts. Under pressure. Additionally, Roger Taylor released his debut solo album Fun in Space, becoming the first member of the band to launch a solo career. He went on to release 5 more albums, although they did not achieve significant commercial success. Crisis. In the spring of 1982, Queen released the dance album Hot Space, which was heavily criticized by both experts and fans. It is considered one of the band's least successful works. That same year, Freddie Mercury began showing the first symptoms of HIV. However, he avoided discussing his diagnosis, and for a long time, most of his acquaintances, except for the band and a few close friends, were unsure if he had the disease. Fans at the time had no idea. Freddie often said, "I don't want to burden people by telling them about my tragedy." Following this, Queen took a brief hiatus, and all the members, except for Deacon, pursued solo projects. In 1985, Mercury released his debut solo album, Mr. Bad Guy. Reunion. A year later, the band reunited and, in early 1984, released the album The Works, which included hits like Radio Gaga,
All we hear is Radio Gaga.
And I Want to Break Free.
I want to break free.
The latter was written by John Deacon, and its music video, where the band members appeared dressed as characters from the soap opera Coronation Street, was banned from airing on MTV. In January 1985, Queen performed at the Rock in Rio Festival, and in July, they took part in the massive charity concert Live Aid, aimed at raising funds for victims of the Ethiopian famine. That same year, Mercury began a long-term relationship with hairdresser Jim Hutton. Freddie referred to Jim as his husband and wore a gold wedding band, which Hutton gave him in 1986 until the end of his life. In 1986, the band also composed songs for the sci-fi action film Highlander, which became the foundation of their new studio album, A Kind of Magic.
This is the kind of magic.
In the summer of that year, Queen embarked on the Magic Tour across Europe. The final concert of the tour, held on August 9, 1986, at Knebworth House, marked the band's last performance with Freddie Mercury. Troubling rumors. Around this time, rumors about Freddie Mercury's health began spreading among fans, which he firmly denied. According to Jim Hutton, Freddie was diagnosed with AIDS in April 1987. From that point on, Freddie's health began to deteriorate rapidly, and the band decided to stop their usual touring after releasing albums. Despite his condition, Mercury found the time and strength to collaborate with Spanish opera singer Montserrat Caballé on the album Barcelona, released in 1988. Initially, Caballé had asked Mercury to record just the title track for the 1992 Summer Olympics in Spain, but they ended up creating a full album together. By 1987, Roger Taylor missed touring and decided to form his own band, The Cross. While the band didn't achieve much popularity, they stayed active until 1993. During this period, Taylor ended his relationship with Dominique Berrand and lived with model Debbie Lang from 1989 to 2002. Together, they had 3 children. In 1989, Queen released the album The Miracle, which produced 5 singles. The hit I Want It All was inspired by Brian May's relationship with Anita Dobson, whom he met in 1986 and later married in 2000.
I want it all.
Mercury once again changed his image, shaving off his mustache and opting for a more formal style of clothing. Fans also noticed a slight change in his voice, which added to their growing concerns about his health. Despite this, the band continued to insist that Freddie was fine. 1990 was a quiet year for Queen, further heightening fans' anxiety. Mercury made only one public appearance at the Brit Awards, where the band received a Lifetime Achievement Award for their outstanding contribution to British music. However, instead of delivering a speech, the visibly frail Freddie simply said, "Thank you, good night." This would be his last public appearance. The last album with Freddie. In 1991, Innuendo was released, the last album by Queen with the classic lineup. Recording it was a significant challenge for the gravely ill Freddie Mercury. Reporters constantly harassed him outside his residence, and to escape the relentless public attention, the band was forced to record the album in Montreux, Switzerland. In 1996, a 3-meter bronze statue of Freddie Mercury was erected on the shores of Lake Geneva in Montreux, where fans still lay flowers in his memory. As with their previous album, the band credited Queen as the author of all the songs. While critics had mixed feelings about the new work, the album topped international charts. An interesting note is that Freddie Mercury dedicated the song Delilah to one of his cats.
You make me smile when I'm just about to cry.
Freddie adored cats, often keeping several in his mansion, and once even commissioned a portrait of them by an artist. Despite writing complex harmonies, Mercury claimed that he could barely read sheet music. He also spoke in a baritone voice, but mostly sang as a tenor. The last single released during Mercury's lifetime was The Show Must Go On. Due to his worsening health caused by complications from HIV and AIDS, the band was unable to shoot a new music video. Instead, they released a montage of footage from 1981 to 1991. The absence of a typical video and the somber lyrics fueled rumors about Freddie's illness, although the band continued to deny them officially. However, just a month later, Mercury finally confirmed he had AIDS. The very next day, on November 24, 1991, he passed away at his Kensington mansion from bronchial pneumonia, a complication of his illness. Mercury's body was cremated, and only his family and 35 close friends attended the service. As per his wishes, his ashes were entrusted to Mary Austin, who buried them in a secret location known only to her. By the end of his life, Freddie had lost his sight and had become so weak that he could no longer leave his bed. He chose to hasten his passing by discontinuing medication, taking only pain relief. Shortly before his death, Freddie transferred the rights to Bohemian Rhapsody to the Terrence Higgins Trust, a charity dedicated to fighting HIV and AIDS. The show must go on. Immediately after Freddie Mercury's death, Brian May immersed himself in work on his debut solo album, Back to the Light, which was released in 1992. May went on to release 2 more albums in the 1990s. On April 20th, 1992, the Freddie Mercury tribute concert took place at Wembley Stadium. The event, attended by over 70,000 fans, featured Mercury's friends, including David Bowie, George Michael, Elton John, James Hetfield, Seal, Annie Lennox, Joe Elliott, Axl Rose, and Freddie's favorite actress, Liza Minnelli. All proceeds from ticket sales were donated to HIV research and awareness efforts. In late 1995, Queen released their final studio album, Made in Heaven, which used reworked recordings of Mercury's vocals. The album also included previously released songs that had appeared as B-sides or on the members' solo projects. Notably, it featured A Winter's Tale, the last song written by Freddie.
It's winter fall.
And Mother Love, his final studio recording.
Just to know that my woman gives me sweet mother love.
By this point, Freddie was so ill that he could only spend an hour or 2 in the studio at a time. When it came time to record the final verse of Mother Love, he said, "I need to rest, but I'll come back and we'll finish." However, he never returned to the studio, and Brian May ended up singing the last verse. After completing work on the album, John Deacon decided to leave the band. He reunited with Queen for a memorial concert in 1997 and participated in recording No One But You, Only the Good Die Young, the band's first and only song recorded without Freddie.
No one but you.
After that, Deacon retired from both Queen and the music industry, choosing to live a private life away from the public eye. New vocalists. Elton John, a close friend of Freddie Mercury and participant in his tribute concerts, encouraged the remaining members of Queen not to give up on the band and to continue performing. Brian May and Roger Taylor took his advice and began giving concerts, collaborating with various popular vocalists who took on Mercury's parts. In 2001, John Deacon, who took Freddie's death the hardest, expressed his disapproval of Queen's collaboration with Robbie Williams, who sang lead vocals on We Are the Champions. Deacon stated that Mercury was irreplaceable, especially not by Williams. Deacon did not attend Queen's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the unveiling of their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, nor did he participate in the Queen Plus Paul Rodgers project. May and Taylor performed with Rodgers from 2004 to 2009, releasing a studio album, The Cosmos Rocks, in 2008. That same year, they held an unforgettable charity concert, Life Must Go On, at Freedom Square in Kharkiv, organized by the Elena Pinchuk Anti-AIDS Foundation. The show attracted the largest audience in the band's history, over 350,000 people. In 2011, Queen teamed up with Adam Lambert, with whom they continue to perform to this day. May became interested in Lambert as a potential replacement for Paul Rodgers after seeing Adam's audition on American Idol, where he performed Bohemian Rhapsody. Their first live performance together took place in 2012 on Kiev's Maidan Square, as part of a joint charity concert with Elton John in support of the Anti-AIDS Foundation. Freddie, once again. By the 1990s, Queen's members believed they had released all the material they had, but in the 2000s, previously unknown tracks began to surface on the internet from various sources. This led to the release of the compilation album Queen Forever in 2014, which included not only familiar songs, but also the previously unreleased track Let Me In Your Heart Again, and new versions of Love Kills and There Must Be More to Life Than This. The latter is a duet with Michael Jackson that, for some reason, was never released in the early 1980s. In 2010, work began on a biographical film about Queen, which finally premiered in 2018. The film's plot focuses on Freddie Mercury's life, from the band's formation in 1970 to their iconic Live Aid performance in 1985. Freddie was portrayed by Rami Malek, whose performance won him an Oscar. Brian May and Roger Taylor were deeply involved in the making of the film as music producers and creative consultants. The movie was a massive box office success, although critics had mixed reactions, accusing it of glossing over and distorting many historical facts. While the band members didn't appear in advertising campaigns, Queen's music and Mercury's voice are often used in commercials. Some of the most popular tracks featured include I Want It All, We Will Rock You, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Don't Stop Me Now, A Kind of Magic, and I Want to Break Free, Support for Ukraine. In February 2022, Brian May and Roger Taylor expressed their support for the Ukrainian people in their fight against Russian invaders, hoping for future concerts in Ukraine once the war ends. A year later, they urged their fans to help raise funds for Ukrainian refugees and to join in watching the recording of their legendary concert in Kharkiv. Mercury's legacy. At the time of Freddie Mercury's death, his net worth was estimated at $50 million, with his real estate valued at over $40 million. He left the majority of his estate to Mary Austin. In 1980, Freddie purchased the Garden Lodge mansion in London for £500,000, and after his death, Austin inherited the property, where she lived for the next 30 years. In February 2024, she listed the mansion for sale at $38 million. A year earlier, Austin decided to auction off Freddie's personal belongings at Sotheby's. Part of the proceeds was donated to the Mercury Phoenix Trust, which fights HIV, and to the Elton John AIDS Foundation. Freddie was also an avid collector of luxury cars, owning a remarkable collection that included a Daimler Limousine DS420, Lincoln Town Car, Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, Range Rover convertible, and Mercedes-Benz 420 SEL. Where the band members are today. As of today, Brian May's net worth is estimated at $260 million. He owns homes in London and Windlesham, Surrey. In 2005, Brian was appointed a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, and in 2023, he was knighted. Beyond his influence in the music world, May has made significant contributions to the scientific community. In 2007, he returned to Imperial College to complete his PhD in astrophysics, defending a dissertation he began in 1971. That same year, he co-authored the book Bang, The Complete History of the Universe. In 2008, he was appointed Chancellor of Liverpool John Moores University, a position he held until 2013. May is also an active advocate for animal rights. In 2010, he founded the organization Save Me, which campaigns against fox hunting and badger culling in the UK. In 2012, he became Vice President of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and in 2020, he became a vegan. Roger Taylor's net worth is estimated at $250 million. He currently lives in Cornwall with his wife, Serena Potgieter, whom he married in 2010 after 6 years together. In 2020, Roger sold his English estate, Millhanger House, with a recording studio for $6,100,000, having lived there from 1979 to 2003. He also had a 2-story mansion in Los Angeles, purchased in the early 1980s for $352,000, which he listed for sale in 2024 for $6,200,000. Taylor is recognized as one of the best rock drummers in history, but he is also proficient on keyboards, rhythm guitar, and bass. As a vocalist, he became famous for his falsetto. He is also known as a producer, having worked on albums for Jimmy Nail and Magnum. John Deacon's net worth is estimated at $180 million. He lives with his wife in a mansion in the Putney area of London. Besides playing bass, Deacon contributed rhythm parts on several albums, occasionally played synthesizer, and often composed songs on the piano. As an electronics engineer, he designed equipment for Queen, including the DC Amp, a guitar amplifier used throughout the band's history. Since leaving Queen, Deacon has largely distanced himself from the other band members, only communicating regarding financial matters related to their music. Even during his time in the band, he was known for being quiet and reserved, often handling the band's business affairs. In February 2024, Queen and Adam Lambert embarked on a mini tour across Japanese cities, and the musicians currently have no plans to end their collaboration. Brian May once said that Adam is the only person he knows who can effortlessly perform any Queen song. How do you feel about May and Taylor's decision to continue working with a new frontman?